let's go to this real quick because there's some folks that I just haven't had the joy of covering in a while. And Glenn Greenwald actually blocked me on Twitter a long time ago. And if you're wondering why, it's because he's an asshole. But this is him telling us that democracy is in peril. Now, this is also a dude that has helped put it in peril at every turn.
Tech continues its mission to silence
the left's quest to censor all dissenting opinion. And I'm sorry, is yelling fire in a crowded theater a dissenting opinion? Honestly, is that, I mean, because that's the analogy. And look, big parlors at the top. So
dissenting voices one by one. This week, liberal journalist Naomi Wolf was the latest victim, suspended.
Oh, was she a victim?
On Twitter for sharing
why
controversial opinions about the coronavirus.
Was she, or was she suggesting multiple times that people take chemicals into their body that are not vetted?
Journalist Glenn Greenwald called out the tech giant's free speech crackdown, tweeting,
I mean, there's a dozen reasons why Naomi Wolf would have gotten kicked off a while ago. I don't know why. Some people, they just takes them a while to get around to it.
There's a virtual industry of operatives funded by the Atlantic Council, which in turn is funded by Gulf state despots and U.S. intel agencies and NATO governments.
It's a veritable conspiracy theory of human centipedism,
whose purpose is to demand the internet be purged of anyone dissenting from their orthodoxies.
Really? Is that they're not doing a very good job then? They're 3 organizations deep, and yet a lot of these folks manage to keep their accounts for a very long time, and it's only when they start talking in like hate speech or suggesting people pour bleach up their ass that they suddenly get kicked off.
Now is Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and author of Security, Democracy, Glenn Greenwald. Glenn, thank you very much for coming.
My fight for press freedom and justice in Bolsonaro's Brazil.
You are very much in demand because you tell.
Yeah, no, he isn't.
Like it is,
No, it wasn't. It was easy to. I mean, if he was if he was very much in demand, he wouldn't be on your show. He'd be on Hannity probably, and it would be an exclusive and that kind of stuff. I mean, come on.
Your experience speaks for itself.
It does.
But when we deal with people like...
Yes, and Alan Dershowitz is still the greatest lawyer, and Rudy Giuliani will always be America's mayor.
The president of the United States, Donald Trump, being banned from social media, to Naomi Wolf, who gets bumped and YouTube videos are disappeared, go into the memory hole.
Do they? For what reason? Why are they getting kicked off? I mean, this video's on. You're talking about the dissenting opinion. This is Fox News Primetime. This is their own channel. You got 7.4 million subscribers. This video has 31,000 views. Not much, but it'll do. On a station with that many subscribers, that's a little weird. It's almost as if you guys are buying subscribers for your network. So apparently YouTube is just down. These dissenting opinions are going down in the memory hole. Here's a guy talking about dissenting opinions and how there's a secret cabal behind the scenes that are brooming all these things. And here he is on YouTube talking about it to someone on broadcast media who's going live via satellite through cable systems all over the country and then posting clips of it.
I contend that, in fact, it's not really even about them.
No, it's not. Definitely not.
That is a message to everyone else.
Yeah, it's just meant to scare you. The rest of us, it's not really about Naomi Wolf. And what was do we know what the last straw was for her? I mean, I don't pre-watch these things, so I don't care. Naomi Wolf, what was, let's see. Naomi Wolf, Twitter, let's see. It'll probably bring up what the last, was it, what was the, why would they suddenly do that to someone to go away? COVID, Twitter suspends Naomi Wolf after tweeting anti-vaccine misinformation. Oh yeah, what was it? Dr. Wolf, well known for her acclaimed third wave feminist book, The Beauty Myth, posted a wide range of unfounded theories about vaccine. One tweet claimed that vaccines were a software platform that can receive uploads. She also compared Dr. Fauci, the top COVID advisor, to Satan, to more than 140,000 subscribers. More recently, she tweeted that the urine and feces of people who had received the jab needed to be separated from the general sewage supplies while tests were done to measure its impact on non-vaccinated people through drinking water. Dr. Wolf was also duped into tweeting a made-up quote of an image of an American adult film star dressed up as a doctor. Her suspension has been welcomed by many on the platform. Professor Gavin Yamey tweeted that he was pleased, adding that Dr. Wolf peddles horrific, dangerous anti-vax nonsense. But some have voiced concern her suspension was stifling free speech. There's a difference between like free speech and utter fear-mongering gibberish. And again, Twitter can make these distinctions. It's their network. Seriously, it's not a public utility. The idea that they're pushing the idea that they're pushing the idea. I'm going to double up on too many ideas. That the right has been pushing this idea that they should be regulated like public utilities because they've used them for free and they think they should have every right to use them for whatever. Yeah. Just I can post anything I want. Child porn, snuff films, anything. Just pictures of people chopping up puppies, whatever. They can't. It's free speech. Everything is art, right?
That if we can do it to them, and it's convenient to do it to them because they might be irritating to people, but
is she irritating, or is she making anti-vaxxers dig in psychotic ways, and she's effectively yelling fire in a crowded theater with what she's saying, as opposed to just, I don't know if I feel like getting, the dissenting opinion would be, Operation Fartsteed was, went too fast. And I don't trust it, and I'm concerned. Like, that would be a dissenting opinion about the vaccines. People are saying they're safe, they've been tested, it's fine. There've been very few reactions. The CDC and NIH are looking at the data, and they're constantly reviewing it. And the dissenting opinion from that is, I don't think they're taking it that seriously. It concerns me. I don't hear this, and I'm hearing other stuff. It's not a dissenting opinion to tell people that you can upload software into people via the vaccine. That is not a dissenting opinion. That is flat out misinformation. It is a wholesale lie. Where does this fall into? Well, why can't we just discuss things? You know what I mean?
But it's also a message to the average person.
Yeah, the average person. Don't be a public figure that posts a blue check mark that post anti-vax stuff?
That you had better, in everything you do, watch what you're doing, because the new rules...
Yes, but you should behave like you're in polite society and don't talk out of your ass.
...rules mean that you're going to be canceled if you say something that is unapproved of.
It's not that it's not approved of. Do you approve of what she's saying? And again, this isn't about, like, in my opinion, I think, she's just flat out spouting this stuff. And again, she's a public figure, so it's different than, there are dozens of random hundreds of thousands probably, random assholes saying equivalent stuff all over Twitter all the time. The difference is that they don't even hit the algorithm.
What do you think of that? What's your take?
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think that...
I think it's very important that you only bring on guests that agree completely with what you're saying.
Sometimes this gets cast as an ideological war against the right, and I don't really think that's quite correct. Obviously, conservatives do bear the brunt in the United States.
That's because conservatives do bear the brunt of believing that you can upload software into vaccines in the United States.
Of online censorship, but I think it's much more about barring anybody from questioning the pieties of the ruling class elite. There are a lot of people on the left who are anti.
No, you can say whatever you want. There's limitations on it. You can't use hate speech to do it. You can't post fake, medical information without some sort of distinct and specific disclaimer. That's why even on television networks, they have those things that come up and go, the opinions expressed in this thing are not of those of the show, and please consult your doctor before. And like even when you do P90X, it starts up with you should check with your physician before starting any exercise regime.
Anti-establishment who also get banned. Naomi Wolf is no conservative at all. And the really interesting thing, Tammy, that I think is worth noting is that When Donald Trump was banned by Facebook and Twitter, a lot of world leaders, including ones who don't feel very positive about Trump, like Angela Merkel and Emmanuel Macron and the left-wing president of Mexico, condemned that banning and warned that if tech giants work with the government to ban whoever they want, democracy is imperiled. And
No, if the government can force a tech company to carry the words of dear leader in spite of their terms of service, if they ultimately try to use their terms of service to broom people. And YouTube, hi guys, this is me defending you again, even though the algorithm watches my videos and then assumes I agree with the bullshit these guys are spouting, especially around vaccine stuff. That if I violate those, the terms of service legitimately, bounce my ass. That's how it works. But the idea that, when democracy dies? Democracy dies when the federal government can force a private company, a social media company, by the way, where no one has the right to be there at any given time. It's a private endeavor. It's paid for by advertising or by membership, depending on the quality of what you're, the one you're in. And if the government could force them to print the words of our leaders, and they can't get rid of the person no matter what they say, that's when democracy dies.
And I think that's the right message that lots of people around the world see, except for journalists in the United States.
It's interesting with your tweet going through, right, the global establishment, having an interest.
I wouldn't know what his tweet said because he blocked me. And, because it's apparently it's a democracy is dying the death of 1,000 cuts.
In this foundation, this platform, several platforms that give average people a voice, which of course is irritating for them. And yet we had, I think it was Nigeria, where Twitter had taken off its leaders, a tweet by its leader, and they banned Twitter from their country. It's as though Twitter is being treated like a separate sovereign nation.
No, it isn't. It's a digital entity. There is no space. You do not have a right to Twitter. It exists. It doesn't interfere with you. You don't have to walk around it. It's not a road, or it's not a mountain that somebody won't blow up so you can put a freeway through. It is a digitally existing environment that you can participate or not participate in. All social media systems are like that. No one has ever tried to put their pictures from their phone on a cloud service and been denied because Twitter is taking up too much space. The ignorance here about digital reality versus real reality is the most frightening aspect of this. If that's true, then, is there a stack where Parler's now in the middle and Twitter is pushing down on it? Why don't you create a lot of other physical analogies about things that are digital?
Because of its impact across so many boards and governments having to respond.
Bullshit. Get a Reddit thread.
To what is an American company, a publicly held American company, but needing to deal with it like it's a country.
No, you don't have to deal with it like it's a country. You don't have to deal with it at all.
Do you see it that way?
No, because no one has ever had to march through Twitter to attack the neighboring country and take their apples and their oil.
There's a point where the only solution seems to be to make this a utility in a way.
Yeah, make it a utility like water, which you can actually drink and you die without, or sewage, which would just get backed up and fill everything with no, it's not a utility. You can use electricity that goes into your home for everything in your home. Twitter is a single-use digital product, and you have multiple choices. Go somewhere else. You can't go, well, we couldn't get water because there was a monopoly about the water, so we're going to bathe in urine or raw sewage.
Way here in America to stop the nature of this octopus.
What octopus? Even an octopus is a physical being that has limited lifespan and limited reach.
From enveloping everything.
Yeah, big Twitter. Yeah, Jesus. What are you nodding at, dipshit? This is the goofiest argument. And I have to say, I'm repeatedly stunned that Republicans are the ones making this. I mean, understand, this is Fox News having on Glenn Greenwald to argue that private companies that do something in the digital space that takes up no physical space and never interrupts your day ever, that owes you nothing, is completely optional, has no guaranteed return. You can post all the political ads you want on Twitter. They may not work if the audience doesn't respond to them. There's no guarantee. Water will hydrate you, if you drink it as a utility, no matter what. There's levels of purity and all that other stuff, but it is a thing that has a baseline value. And the idea that these guys are asking for more government regulation, because let's be abundantly clear. So anytime you hear them like, we get rid of regulations, more regulations, and you didn't come to watch an argument. You came to see it. Yeah, this is abuse. The idea that these guys are arguing for more government regulation, the regulation of a digital entity as a utility, that's like, can you imagine? Remember back in Gamergate when they were talking about physical ideals in gaming characters and how, they wanted to regulate whether or not somebody could, how they could look in there the same way that they, keep, size 0 models from walking on runways, even though they're digital creations. They derided that kind of stuff when they perceived that the left was doing it all the time. And this is exactly what they're doing. There is no guarantee in Twitter, Facebook. I mean, and any of these entities. The fascinating thing, even with Facebook, that any of these entities could be eaten by a new, better one tomorrow. Ask MySpace.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm against censorship in all cases, but if you have a government that's censoring,
you don't have a government that's censoring. As a matter of fact, the opposite is happening. If the government was another form of government censoring, is a government forcing a platform, no matter what it wants to do, to carry the words of anyone, forcing them to do it.
That's democratically accountable. You can vote those people out of office. You can influence what it is that they're doing. With tech corporations, they have no democratic accountability at all. They can do whatever they want.
Yes, they do have a democratic accountability. Everybody could walk if it does not serve their interests. If they find that they're in a constant, cul-de-sac of information, they get tired of having confirmation bias, they're not getting any new information, everything's the same shit every day, they'll get bored and go. It's the market, guys.
And because they're monopolistic entities, they're
not monopolistic entities. You're talking about them. You're talking about the same industry and multiple companies. Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and all the the ever-growing number of random offshoots, not including fwank.com. Don't forget FWANQ, subscribe at our Twitch channel. That you've got YouTube, you've got Twitch, you've got, Rumble, obviously, Don Jr.'s on there. There's a lot of these variants. What's the monopoly is the reach, and the reach is only there because people feel like they're getting served by being in these spaces. If the day they don't feel like it, or there's some new version of it, they'll go because they don't have to pack. It's not a building.
Starting to control and police our public discourse.
No, they're not. They're starting to police the discourse on their platforms that you don't have to be on.
And the other aspect that I think is very alarming is that it's oftentimes not even these corporations like Facebook and Twitter and Google that are doing it. They're doing it at the behest of governments. There are now Democratic Party hearings all the time demanding they censor more. Other governments around the world insisting that dissidents in their countries be silenced. It's really like a union between state and corporate power trying to police and control the internet, which was supposed to be this innovation that...
Is it supposed to be? What's it supposed to be?
Liberated us all from centralized...
It liberated us all? You mean the thing that the DOD gave us?
Control.
Right. And of course, that was the threat in and of itself. And it worked. And it worked. So this is clearly, when we talk about threats to not just the United States, but the world, this is one of them.
By the way, this is why I don't put pop-up screens at the ends of my videos, because of how the timing works. YouTube, that's why I don't take advantage of that whole thing. Here's what should happen. YouTube, listen to me. When you post a video, you should have an option of a 10-second addendum on the end of the video that it automatically stacks on that has those things on it. Clickable. You like this? You like this? Let's click it here. That's either automatic, or there's a stencil, or there's several different versions where you could upload them. But this is hilarious. Look at Glenn with this big Fox News Channel sticker right over his face. Like, yeah, can't stop lying. I knew you would understand. It's like, how do you? This always looked like shit.
We don't have an administration now, I think it's safe to say, that has the courage to stand up to it, but we will soon.
Stand up to what? You mean that we'll give you more government regulation?
Thank you, Glenn. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. Great stuff.
Yeah, it was awesome, and you're so in demand. Jesus, how is this? Do you realize the level of gibberish we just heard from those two idiots? I mean, not only is it like not in line with conservatism at all, like the illusion of conservatism at Fox. I mean, just like literally conservative to them is getting what they want all the time. If they decided they wanted something that would be considered liberal, it would suddenly be a conservative thing. It's just because me, now. That's all it is. That's the entirety of their argument. But if you're arguing that, again, digital spaces that take up no physical space, that are completely optional in your life, and that there's always one waiting in the wings, ask Vibe about how TikTok is working. Ask Snapchat about TikTok. Ask, when Instagram got gobbled up by Facebook and then became basically a sales arm of Facebook, and it started to diminish over time, and all Twitter had to do was change the sizing necessity of how its pictures worked, and it jumped in and leapt ahead of Instagram on like 4 different metrics. There's no monopoly in these situations. If you have a steel monopoly, the idea that somebody else could dig up the steel where you were digging it up, take that ore or whatever, and convert it in a factory into usable metals and deliver it as girders and shit like that. That's a huge endeavor. Anything you can create by coding on a laptop is not inconveniencing anyone else and is completely optional. I don't get this.